must feel that communications is adequate for them. They didn't have to show up. Anyway, moving right along here, we have Floyd Bayne with us this evening. He is running against Eric Cantor to be the Republican candidate for the House. And without further ado, he's been here before. He's not been here, but he's been in that race before. He knows whereof he speaks. Here's Floyd.
Thanks, John. Good evening. It's always good to be among fellow patriots. Excuse me for a minute while I put these on. Too many birthdays. Well, this is my first time with the New Kent Tea Party, and I'd like to say welcome to the 7th District. I imagine most of you do know you're in the 7th District now. They got rid of Rappahannock County, they got rid of Madison County and Page County in the northern part of the district, added some parts of Spotsylvania, and added New Kent. So you guys are now in the 7th District. So looking at your sign up there, I like that. Limited government, fiscal responsibility, free enterprise, constitutional adherence, individual accountability. That's why I'm running. Now, I'm going to start real quickly here, give you a Reader's Digest version of who I am. I was born and raised in Richmond. My family owned 3 supermarkets, and for a few years I owned my own private security services business, training private investigators and unarmed and armed security officers. So I know what it is to run a business. I know what it means to have to meet a payroll. I know what it means to have to cut some spending here and there to keep your business afloat. And we didn't get government loans, so we didn't get money from the government to keep our business running. I've been married 30 years now. My wife is a school teacher in Chesterfield. We have 2 children. My daughter's 22, my son is 19, and I'm hoping to live long enough to hear them both say, "Dad, you're not as dumb as we thought you were." So it's one of the little joys of life. Recently, I have become a career changer. Like I said, we own 3 supermarkets. We sold those. And I went back to school. I graduated from high school in Richmond many years ago, and I did not go to college. Went right out of high school, went to the family business. So when I decided to change careers, I thought, well, you know, I love history. I've been a Civil War reenactor in the past. I've read history since I was a kid. I want to teach history. I want to teach political science. So I went back, got my degree, and now I have a degree in history and political science. And I'm substitute teaching in Chesterfield County and looking to get a full-time job doing that. And of course, if I make it through the June 12 primary, that all may change. So that's basically who I am. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a career politician. I haven't joined all the right clubs. I haven't gone to all the right meetings. I don't have an entourage that follows me everywhere I go. I'm just a guy like you who frankly got fed up with the way things are going in my government. It started for me in '09. First Tea Party rally. How many people came to Richmond for the first one in Richmond at Canterwell Plaza? Okay, I was there. I'd never been to anything that you would call a protest in my life. I always looked at those, you know, a bunch of hippies out there with signs and making a mess. I'm not going to go to one of those. Well, you know, things changed. And when my representative, your current representative, voted for TARP, not once, but twice, it just pushed me over the edge. And when I went to the Tea Party rally, and I literally went up to complete strangers and struck up a conversation with them, and I asked them, what do you guys think about someone challenging Eric Cantor? And without exception, every one of them said, I really wish someone would challenge that guy. He's a rhino. We need to get more conservatives up there. Well, that's when I made up my mind that I had to do it. Now, last time I ran as an independent, steep learning curve. Trust me, when you run for Congress, there's a lot of things you have to learn, and I'd like to think I learned a few. Well, after that election, I had a lot of people in the party call me and email me and say, hey, we really wish you would challenge this guy in the primary. We think that's your best shot. And after sitting down and consulting with some people, I decided that's the way to go. And again, the reason I'm running is I've had it, folks. I mean, how many of you here think the federal government's grown too big? How many of you think the federal government spends too much money? How many of you want to see term limits to get rid of career politicians? Well, guess how long my opponent has been up there?
Too long.
12 years. Is that long enough?
Yes.
During that time, he has done nothing, zero, to shrink or reduce the size and scope of the federal government. Now, I'm going to challenge you tonight. Don't take my word for it. If you have access to a computer, look it up. Go check his voting record. If you don't have access to a computer at home, go to your local library. But please, this is important. As Gary said, as John has mentioned, this election is important. My first vote I ever cast in my life was for Ronald Reagan. I came of age, voting age, right at the time when he ran. And I've never been more proud of the vote that I've made in my life. But while I've been disappointed with some presidents in the past and a little leery of some, Bill Clinton comes to mind, I've never been as afraid, literally afraid, as I am now. But let's not make this mistake, and I hear this all too often, and this may not sit well with some of you, but hear me out. Let's not make the mistake of blaming all this on the Democrats. We didn't get into this mess just because of Democrats. We're here because we have far too many Republicans who are progressive, who grow the size of the government, and who spend too much money. Now, you have out there on that table, you can buy them for $1, a pocket Constitution. Along with that, if you ever have a chance to buy one, I recommend buying the Federalist Papers. Read it. Understand, limited government, folks, is the first thing on your list. The federal government has 17 enumerated responsibilities. That's it, period. Anything beyond that is unconstitutional. And in that vein, let me just say that there are departments that need to be abolished. There are things that need to be gotten rid of. Personal Income Tax Division of the IRS, I would abolish it. Department of Education, I would abolish it. Department of Energy, I would abolish it. FEMA, I would abolish it. National Institutes of Health, really? That's what our federal tax dollars are being spent on. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Come on, folks. I mean, look, I've got 11 pages right here. 11 pages of bureaus, divisions, administrations, offices, foundations. My opponent has not done anything in any way, shape, or form to abolish or minimize any of these. Period. Nothing. Talks about it. Talks a real good game, especially during an election year. How many of you have ever read the Republican Creed? Okay, some of you in here have. If you ever want to see what it is, go to the Republican Party of Virginia website and type in Creed in the search bar. And it'll bring up the Republican Creed, which pretty much matches what you have up here. A little bit more wording. Let's start with this. The free enterprise system is the most productive supplier of human needs and economic justice. Does that make sense? That's part of the Republican Creed. Then why do both parties continue to tinker with the economy instead of allowing the free market to fix the problems? I mean, folks, both parties are doing it. My opponent does it. Every time you hear him say, we have a Republican bill to create jobs. Really? The government does not create jobs. You do. People like Gary do. People who invest money create jobs. The most we can hope for from the government is that they get out of your way and they let you grow your business. It's that simple. The fiscal responsibility and budgetary restraints must be exercised at all levels of government. That's part of the Republican Creed. Does that make sense to you? If I said TARP, what comes to mind? Does that sound to you like fiscal responsibility?
No.
Doesn't to me. How about PEPFAR? Do you remember what that was? The President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. $55 billion to Africa so they could fight AIDS over there. Voted for it twice. $55 billion of your tax money going to Africa. Now, I think we all agree that AIDS is a scourge and we need to do something about it. But is that really the federal government's responsibility, using our tax dollars? Could we donate that money on our own and do something philanthropic rather than having the government take it from us? My opponent raised the debt ceiling at least 5 times under Bush, ultimately increasing their debt from $5.95 trillion to $9.815 trillion. Gary showed you some of the numbers up here a minute ago. Cantor voted to increase the debt ceiling by another $2.1 trillion in August of last year. Now, there were supposed to be $2.4 trillion in cuts to go against that. Have you seen any of them?
No.
Did he get rid of any departments, any bureaus, any administrations? That list I just went over? Where are those cuts coming from? It's a mystery to me. The federal government must preserve individual liberty by observing constitutional limitations. Constitutional adherence, it's right there on the list. Anybody ever heard of the National Defense Authorization Act? Do you know what it does?
Screws you.
Yeah, that's a pleasant way of putting it. How many of you in here know that you are potential terrorists now? Your government has determined that you are a potential terrorist because you are part of the Tea Party. You talk about things like the Constitution and limited government. You're Second Amendment advocates. Think about it now. You're a potential terrorist. The NDAA says, Obama signed it into law not long ago, that you can be detained by your government indefinitely with no due process of law if they determine that you might be a potential threat. Who gets to make that determination? What is a potential threat? It's pretty vague if you read the bill. If you are considered a potential terrorist, you're part of the problem as far as they're concerned. Well, due process of law is constitutional adherence, is it not? You have a right to face your accusers. You have a right to a speedy trial by a jury of your peers. NDAA says, no, you don't. My opponent voted for NDAA. He voted for it. Now again, folks, I know you're looking up here and you say, oh, this guy's running for office. He's just going to tell us whatever he wants us to know. Look it up. Look it up yourself. Go online. It's there. H.R. 347, the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act of 2011. Anybody heard of that one? The Secret Service can now determine whether or not you get to protest. If President Obama is making a speech and you want to stand at the back of the crowd with a sign saying, Obama, you stink, the Secret Service could say, no, we can't have that kind of stuff around here. You either have to leave or we're going to arrest you. Your First Amendment rights are under assault. My opponent has Secret Service protection because he's the head of the House, right? So if he's giving a speech or he's having a town hall meeting and one of his Secret Service people decides that they don't like the way you're yelling or the sign that you have, you can be asked to leave or be arrested. Does that sound like constitutional adherence to you? Doesn't to me. My opponent voted for that. The Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Act that was recently passed says that the federal government can now have unmanned flying drones spying on American citizens. And I just saw, I posted on my Facebook page today an article that was in the newspaper showing that we have 2 sites here in Virginia that are going to have these unmanned drones. VCU and Virginia Tech.
They're not exactly bastions of conservatism, are they?
No, but again, guess who voted for this? My opponent. Now, having made these points, does that sound at all to you like anything that's constitutional adherence?
No.
These are violating our rights as Americans, folks, and if I was angry before, I'm livid now. This has got to stop. And we've got to start holding these guys accountable, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, or if they're from the Balloon Animal Party. I don't care who they are. Stop looking at the letter next to the guy's name and start looking at the politician and what he does. Don't just believe the speeches they make on TV. Don't look at the nice newspaper articles. Look at what they vote for. The peace is best preserved through a strong national defense. Another part of the Republican creed. Do you know we're more concerned with the border between North and South Korea than we are with our own southern border? We've got troops stationed there. We won't even put troops on our own border. Of course, we don't have any troops left to put on the border. We've got them all over the world in 130 countries, 700 bases. Our troops' morale is at an all-time low because of their never-ending deployments. I know you've seen the newspaper articles and seen the news stories about the high suicide rates among our active duty personnel. Why do you think that is? You can't keep people on active combat duty month after month after month and think it's not going to take a toll on them. How about we start defending this country and stop defending countries around the world?
Amen.
Right. And I'll say this too. I'm all for no more foreign aid. None for anybody. It's not constitutional. It's not our business to be taking care of other nations, no matter what their problems. I'd rather see that money used to take care of our veterans here at home.
Yes.
If we're going to spend the money anyway, let's spend it on something that makes sense. Let's take care of our veterans. Do you know now a veteran who loses a limb has to go through private organizations and raise money to get the prosthesis he needs?
I get the mail every day.
Really?
Our own government.
Everybody wants.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's asking for money.
But we'll give, $55 billion to Africa to take care of their AIDS problem over there. It doesn't make sense to me, folks. So again, I could stand up here all night and tell you all the things this guy's voted for that have really set me off. I'm not perfect. The only thing I can stand here right now and look you in the eye and promise you without hesitation is, I'm not going to lie to you. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. You may not like the answer, but I will answer your question. And here's something you don't get much from politicians. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know. But I'll look for the answer, and in looking for the answer, it's going to be based on the Constitution. Is it the proper role of the federal government to be dealing with that issue or this issue or any issue, whatever it may be? If it's not part of the 17 enumerated responsibilities, we don't do it, period. Now, we've got to get back to the idea, folks, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's not something you just pick and choose from. It's not convenient one day or then convenient the next. It's not bad when the Democrats spend a lot of money, but okay when the Republicans spend a lot of money. I'm holding my own party accountable. I hold myself accountable. If I screw up, individual accountability. It's right there. I expect to be held accountable. You don't reward bad behavior. If these guys year after year after year keep growing the government, spending money, and not voting constitutionally, you don't reward them by continuing to re-elect them. Now you have a choice this year. I'm asking you on June 12th, that's the primary. John was telling you earlier, we need to get people fired up. We need to get them involved. June 12th is your first chance to make a change. You believe in term limits? Don't wait for them to do it. You do it. June 12th, you have a chance to make a difference. I have some business cards up here with my campaign manager's contact information and my website. I have 2 legal pads back there on that table. The gentleman's leaning on there. I would like, if you're willing to help, you want to get more information, volunteer, or just keep up with what's going on with the campaign. Your name and email address and what precinct you vote in. Because frankly, we're going to be looking for precinct captains to help with the campaign. So if we know what precinct you're in, that helps us as well. I have a website, it's real easy, floydbayne.com, and Bayne is spelled B-A-Y-N-E. The bottom line is this, you have a choice. I need your help. You know what I'm up against. I know what I'm up against. I have no illusions about this. But I believe the time has come to stop talking about it and actually do it. I stepped up, I put myself on the block, and I've offered myself up to you. It's a choice. Some people are gonna thank me, some people are gonna kick me. That's okay, I can deal with it. I refereed ice hockey for 15 years. You can't call me any names I haven't already heard. So I can deal with it, I've got a pretty thick skin. But again, when you leave here tonight and you start talking to your friends and neighbors and family, you gotta say to them, guys, it's time to stop talking about it. It's time to do something about it. You've got a choice this year. I need your help. If you want to go to my website, there's a link there where you can donate. I make no bones about it. You know as well as I do, money's a big part of this. We can't compete if we don't have money. So I need your help with that as well. And if you have any questions, I'll take some questions now if we have a few minutes. But if you can't think of anything now and you do think of something later, by all means, contact me through my website. I have email and Facebook on there. And ask me anything you want to ask me. I won't be bashful about it. I'll answer your questions. Anybody here have a question now? Yes, sir.
Were you on the Doc Thompson show when he was here in Richmond?
Yes, sir.
And Eric Cantor refused to come and discuss some of the...
Eric Cantor would not debate me last time. We had a couple of debates with the Democrat. I ran as an independent, as I said before. And the debates I had with the Democrat were very cordial, but we made it clear to the people in the room, look, you have two choices. More government, less government. Which do you choose? We made no bones about it. I liked the guy. He was a nice fellow, but we disagreed 100% on what the role of the government was. What I tried to say to people was, you got big government, less government, and the guy who's not here will tell you he's for little government, but he votes to grow the government. Which do you want? Do you want somebody who's going to tell you one thing and do the other? Or do you want somebody who's going to look you in the eye and say, look, that's not constitutional, I'm not going to vote for that. That's who I am. I'm not going to vote to grow the government. In fact, I'm going to do everything I can to shrink it back into its enumerated responsibilities. Anybody else? All right, well thank you, John. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Any questions where this man stands? I don't think so. No mealy mouth and no double talking. I'll just end by saying, I think you've heard me say before, experienced politicians